There's a Zoom link on the agenda that can be found on RockBF website. That being said, we'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is to approve the minutes of September 26, 2023. They're in the packet that was just handed out this evening, or you could have got them online.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes of September 26, 2023.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the meeting of the minutes of September 26, 2023. Any further discussion, corrections, deletions, omissions, etc.? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matter and or pressing matters that will require certificate of ratification at a future meeting. I have none. Scott?
No, I'll send.
Anyone on the board? We will be meeting, there will be an item on other business that's going to be for the survey update that Bonnie and Rick are taking care of. So when we get there, we'll take care of that. Public comments on items not on the agenda. Seeing here none, move right along to the manager's report.
So thank you. So a couple things. We got a utility notice from one of the regional utility companies. So it's not Green Mountain Power. So they're working on our substation and then a bunch of transmission lines which go upstate for storm hardening. So kind of like the project that Green Mountain's doing on Route 121, you might see additional work on some of the around our train station, and most of the work, or most of that line then crosses over and goes up the New Hampshire side for an extended period, then goes all the way up to RIDWIG, that one particular transmission line. So there may be some activity that people might see as they're working on various pieces of new poles and storm hardening, and might be some trees and some other things that might be impacted. Nothing that I can see for us necessarily, much more stuff as you head upstate. I'm sure it's much more impactful as you go up through some of the other communities farther up into the valley. But I guess the good news is that we're starting to see, hopefully, some of this storm hardening work. We'll have to see if it gives us better reliability going forward on some of these storms. I think the biggest challenge always is losing power in all of these events. So it's kind of a good news, bad news thing. It's a little disruptive while it happens. It does tend to take out trees and create problems in the right of way. People don't like the way it looks. I understand the aesthetics. But the flip side is that it gives us more uptime in some of these storms and provides better overall reliability in the system. That's sort of the trade-offs that we'll have to experience as these things go forward and we experience more of these tropical type events. So hopefully we'll see, like I said, improvement and uptime in some of those as we go forward. We are in the winter parking period. I try to remind folks, I know most folks are pretty responsible with that, but if you haven't, please see the clerk and get a permit for off-street parking. If you have extra vehicles, you can't put it in a driveway or take off the street. Because what you'll find is eventually in some of these events, we've been trying not to ticket folks in tow. It's not something we like to do. It takes a lot of manpower, resources, makes a lot of people angry. So compliance is a heck of a lot more enjoyable than having to tow folks and then plow the roads and the streets. So if you could, just sort of keep that in mind. Now we are in the winter season and we'll be dealing with that as we go forward accordingly. So the last thing is, I know we talked at the last meeting in September about possibly doing a tax sale. We're going to do an update to everybody in January. So we're in the middle of our budget process. We've had quite a bit of activity, I think, since we've last spoken. So I think our overall impact has been good on our receivables for taxes, and people have been in somewhat more compliant, so we're hopeful that that'll continue. But we'll give you a full update at the January meeting for that as well.
Any questions for the manager?
I understand we have a new superintendent of the highway department.
So December 4th, we're going to have Glenn Schroeder's going to be taking over. Andy wanted to step back a little bit, so he'll be assisting. So Glenn will be our primary superintendent for highways.
Great. I think he's a good choice.
Good guy. Looking forward to working with him. So be a little bit of a change when you answer the phone, but expect the same levels of service, and Andy will still be in the department, so that's all good.
Anyone else? Seeing none, move right into the agenda. First item is the update, Act 68, statewide appraisal. Mr. Noble had this lead on this one.
If you don't mind, can I go over there so I can?
Sure.
You can go wherever
face
you'd like. You go on the stage, you wanna go over the
No,
podium, you
no.
wanna go,
See my hands on stick?
you wanna go stand in front of the owl, wherever you feel comfortable.
Open up that curtain.
Yeah, we can make a big production, however you feel comfortable.
I don't see the town manager very often, so this is a good place to be with him.
Not like every day, right?
I'm going to start with a little explanation of what I'm gonna do, which is backwards to what I was gonna do this morning. I've had, since I was asked to talk about Act 480, I've had different members, some in this room and some who are not here, asked me to explain a couple items. And the first one that somewhat surprised me was to explain to you all what listers do. That seems odd to me, but it apparently is not. So it turned out that will lead you into the next question, which is what's this Act 480? And the question there was a dominant question from the select board and other folks has been, what is it gonna do? What is the impact to us? What effect will it have on the town of Rockingham? So let's start with the listers, and just to give you a quick history, the listers originally started under the rule of the King of England. They started everywhere, but they distinctly started in Rockingham. And the first tax collector or tax lister in Rockingham is buried on Rand Road. If you want to hike out in the woods, you can find his gravesite with a stone with the epitaph that says, "The most hated man in Rockingham." So that's where we start, and that name is why we are called listers, because we transitioned into being listers for the new government, and that's how we are known as listers. If you mention listers to somebody in any other one of our states, they won't know what we do because they don't have any. The basic difference is listers are elected officials by the public, assessors are not. They are hired by a town. So there's a difference. Now you know who we are. We report directly to the citizens of this town. We do not report to the town manager or the select board. We are sworn to do an equitable assessment of the property, and we are also sworn to cooperate with the select board and the town manager. But it's an interesting thing when you cross the threshold in our office, you've stepped out of the rule of the town management as you know it. So we are independent. We theoretically cannot be influenced by anybody other than the three of us. So that's a lister. What do? We work or provide services to the state of Vermont in the terms of assessing the property that's here in town and a number of other service jobs we do for the PV&R people is to check on homestead applications. We follow all of the veterans benefit programs, and we answer questions and provide answers to the citizens of this town. To that respect, just for your picture of how much it is, it takes us 50% of our time to deal with the citizens, 50% to the state. The other thing we've done, we've changed, as you've noticed, if you haven't, take a look. The lister's office has radically changed in the way we manage it. We changed it from being a clerical operation to making it into a service organization. So now we are doing a lot more service for other departments in the town and to the citizens. So much so that I just counted it at about 5:45 tonight. We had made 860 citizens calls in the last 12 months. And we've answered everyone. We have a process. We answer every call the day we receive it. And they will get an answer within 24 hours, no matter what, even if it's over the weekend. We take a couple days off. But Monday morning, we answer every phone call that comes in. We guarantee you we'll have an answer in 24 hours. If we get stuck, and it has happened about 4 times, we will still call you and tell you we're stuck and we're working on it. But to us, that's the critical element, because when a taxpayer calls, they're usually pretty serious. They have a problem that they've already tried and not been able to solve. So we do that. To do that, we have partnered with 2 or 3 organizations in town. This is unusual, but we work with SEVCA. We work very strongly with the Legion in making sure that our citizens have access to things. That's usually one of their problems. They don't know where to go. Well, we have a list of where to go. You call SEVCA, they handle all these things, we don't. And the veterans, we use the Legion, and they do a terrific job of tracking down veterans and solving some very difficult problems quickly. And one of them, to give an example, is a widow's benefit when a veteran passes away. Without a death certificate, we cannot get that benefit to the widow. If they die out of state, that does not come into the town clerk. But the Legion can find them. They know where they were, and they will get us a death certificate from that state. So then we can clear that up right away. The widow's taken care of, and we're out of it. So that's what a lister does fundamentally. And then we can move on to 480 if you, I don't want to go any further. You know what we do. We do citizens work, we do town work, we do work for the state. If you want to know more, come see us. We'll be happy to talk to you about it. Let's talk about Act 480. 480 started about 18 months ago. And when we first saw it, we, the listers in Rockingham, immediately called the VALA people and said, what's this all about? It doesn't make any sense. So we started action at that point, writing VALA, following VALA through the hearing that they had, one hearing. We followed them after that to find out what they found out. And then we proceeded, I got a hold of Scott. Scott jumped in the pot, and the select board joined us. We managed to send more information to VALA and to VLCT. Then it went silent. But what it was a move to completely replace the listers' offices and have the state take over the whole assessment business, and you and I would have to deal with the state of Vermont. And then you can see what happens. It transitions downhill to what do you do with an appeal? Well, we're going to have the equivalent of the BCA somewhere in the state. You got to come see us. We're not coming to see you. In other words, we'll have a regional place where we'll have a hearing officer sit there and listen to what you have to complain about. The thing went downhill continuously, and what happened was, number one, everybody in this area said this thing just isn't going to work. Because number one, to have somebody to go somewhere out of town, away, for a hearing is difficult, and there's no local input to what is being done in your evaluation. So that was the thrust at the very beginning from the select board, the town manager, the listers. A few comments from citizens who heard of this, but they really never received much information. So that's what started this picture. Then we moved forward and forward and forward to the next step, where all of a sudden the state was forming a study to see exactly how can we make this work. And the answer was, we can't. The answer was, this doesn't work because we can't hire any assessors to do this. There aren't any. That particular profession is starved for people, and there are not assessors out there who will take on the job of doing the towns. So they thought, well, if we had 14 of them, that would cover each county, and one guy's gonna do a county. I got news for you. One guy can't do Rockingham. And so that's kind of collapsed. It's continued to collapse until 2 days ago. We got a message from PVNR that irrespective, we're moving ahead. We're gonna get this done. But we've changed it. We're gonna kind of keep the listers. They will have to be supervised by somebody, an appraiser of nature or training. And that's what's gonna happen. Shortly after that, and as in the beginning, the first week that this was published, VLTC complained and said this is totally not gonna work. Vala said the same thing. The listers who report or speak with Vala, the Vala represents the listers, said this is not a good idea. You can't drop the listers because they represent the people. They're elected by the people. That's the reason they're there, is to bring it down to the town level. And we don't think that a centrally based organization in Montpelier can handle local affairs as well as is being done. That's what happened after they said last week, we're moving ahead. They had no answer as how. We're moving ahead, but we don't know how. But we're working on it. And since it's now almost the end of November, if you want to comment, you have 15 days to file a comment. That's the message from PVNR a couple of days ago. I believe today Rick got a copy of what VLTC has put in again. And that copy, or that document, says that VLCT just doesn't understand how this works, nor do they think it's a good idea. So there's a lot of pressure being put on the legislature to review this thing. I don't know where it's going. My information is as late as last night at 9:30. I talked with the people up in Montpelier at night. I do that because they have my undivided attention. But I don't think we know 100% what is going on with this yet. What's it do to us? That's your decision. Remember, we work for you. You tell us what you want as listers, but the game is if you lose local people, I would say 90% of the information that we deal with comes from local people. It's a joke in our office. You can use the joke that when you don't know what's happening, call Paul, because I've lived here for nearly 65, 70 years, and I either went to school with everybody, know their parents, know their grandchildren, and as you know, I was a sheriff and an EMT. I've either taken you to jail or taken you to a hospital. That's the way it works. So it's a joke with these guys because they'll say, well, he knows the grandfather who lived there. And it's, I think, valuable information. I hope it is. But so we do not approve of this system, but we are in a position at this moment that we care what happens. But we're in a position to adapt to whatever they decide to do. That's only because we've changed the way we operate, and we've changed it to a point where our operation is extremely efficient. We're using some new technology that cuts our road time down when we assess properties. So that gives us the time to deal with the public. It's not a wasted moment, because now we have an extra hour to handle the guy who can't find his property lines. Things like that we can normally do from the office, to the point that some of our technology, we can remove all vegetation from the earth and see a stone wall that was put in there in the late 1800s that you can't even find if you go and walk on it. But that's the technology that's available to us. It's available to every lister in this state. It's not just us. We are using information that is currently available to everybody. So if it affects us, if you see a bad thing about what's going on, if you see a good thing, this is our time to act. I think we're going to have to be right on top of this. And it means, as I'll point out in a minute, we can't sit back and be idle. We have to make our feelings known. And if we want the lister program to continue, there's no question they can handle it. They've done it 100 years. And what I've noticed is, if you read all the piles of stuff, you'll find there's absolutely no comment made anywhere on any study by anybody that says the listers have not done a good job of assessing property in the state of Vermont. What they've pounced on is that we are not treating equity right in this sense that it's possible that we are racially and ethically biased. My observation of the meetings I've been to for 7 years, I've never heard that term brought up anywhere in a listers meeting in the state of Vermont. It sure doesn't happen in this one, and it's virtually impossible to do it the way you have to value property. Because you don't know the buyer, you very seldom know the seller. There is no bias there, because we see buildings, we don't see people. And so that's where we're at. Is it going to affect us? Yeah. If you withdraw the local input from this process, you do two things. You take away the local knowledge, and if you know anything about statistics, which is the focal point of most of assessing, statistics is a science, but is also an art. You need to value all the criteria, not just how much does it cost to build it. Where is it? This is a critical element. Where is it in the town of Rockingham will change a property value by 90%? Just where is it? Is it in Saxon's River, Parker Hill, or other places? There is a different neighborhood markup. This is the problem with one of the other options the state is exploring, is to create tax districts. I'll give you a fake district, because they haven't told me what they have selected as being our district, but it would be one office that handles Westminster, Rockingham, Athens, and Grafton. First question is, what happens to the listers? How do they enter that arena? With one assessor who kind of oversees that, hired by the town. So now we have to split the bill with each town. Hired by the town, who supervises this whole operation. It's very difficult for us to imagine that. We've talked about it, we probably can handle it. But if you look at the town of Rockingham has 14 neighborhoods. Each neighborhood has a different value for the same house. If we add 4 more towns, how many neighborhoods does each one of those towns have? It creates a massive mathematical problem to have one guy supervising all these neighborhoods. So it's gonna cause us some grief. Can we deal with it? Yes, we can. So that's that part. Now, before you ask questions, I'm gonna make an invitation. You could get into a long discussion. I didn't wanna do that tonight because you can talk about one topic for the whole evening and go on to tomorrow. But we will gladly welcome anybody in town, including you guys, or if you have the golden invitation, that you can come to our office anytime at your convenience, and we will deliberately stop doing what we're doing and discuss anything you want to understand. That's always been an invitation, but this is public invitation. The other thing I can say that in this room, where's Rick? Hiding over there. Rick needs a medal. He has a problem that none of you have. It's serious. He's my neighbor. Worse yet, he has a dog named Axel. Axel comes to my house. When Axel's on my land, I know Rick's out walking, and when I want to talk to Rick, I just go follow Axel. So he cannot escape. Now, you have to be warned, I also have a dog in walking, and he knows the same thing, so it works both ways. But he is lately, this last few weeks, spent a lot of time working on this and communicating with me about what he sees it would do. I hate to tell you about Peter. Peter comes into our office at least 3 times a week. Usually in the morning, he knows our trick. We have a morning, what we call story time. And in the morning, between 8 and 9 o'clock is when we take stock. The 3 of us sit down together and discuss whatever we've done alone so that everybody in that room knows what's going on. And he happens to always like the stories, so he drops in. And Scott, who's in our next office, has been cornerstone in keeping us in touch with what he sees. And he sees a whole different picture because of his connections. So what you're hearing about now is not just my feelings, it's the feelings of the entire board, Lister's board, but it also has input from everybody else who has a real strong role in this town. And what we need is your support. You've got ours. Let's see what we can do to get this thing working in a manner that's acceptable to our citizens. Now it's yours.
All right, I just have one question. I've listened to all this, like, why do they even want to do this?
We don't.
And that finally came up there at the end, you said, ethical and racial bias? Is that
Yeah.
that? Now, I thought, well, how does that come into play? But then you mentioned these neighborhood valuations,
Right.
which I never really knew anything about. Do you think it's the neighborhood valuations that they think need to be examined
No.
or something?
No.
That would be where that kind of bias might manifest, right?
Well, let me just briefly tell you, that valuing property does not involve people. Therefore, there is no bias towards a person.
But yeah, well, what is this neighborhood valuation say?
Well, for example, in the town of Saxton's River, when, let's say, let's create 2, let's make it easy. Let's create 2 identical properties, absolutely nothing different. They're built by the same carpenter, with the same lumber, with the same everything. It's worth $100,000. It's on an acre of land. It's the same size in 2 places. Let's go, one is in Bellows Falls, and one of them is in Saxton's River. And I'm even gonna put it on Green Street, because that's a neighborhood. They're identical. No difference. I will tell you, the one at Saxon's River is 190%, and this one is 100. And the reason is Saxon's River. Why? It's very simple, and it's the one thing everybody else has missed. The earned income level in Saxon's River is much higher than it is here. Therefore, the people pay more money for the same house because they can't buy it any other way. There's a shortage of housing. It's a seller's market. Don't let them fool you. And what happens is they like Saxon's River. They like bigger lots. They like sidewalks. They like the ambiance of a little tiny town. They don't think that that's rural, and they really call it rural. You might as well be on a farm. That's the way they feel. We interview every buyer now. We don't just send them a questionnaire. We go see them and talk to them and ask them why you're here. And that is the key factor, is they will look at a neighborhood. The bright spot for everybody is Bellows Falls has already come to life, and right now we're selling property in Bellows Falls for the same price as Saxon's River. So when we do a new appraisal, which is going to be 25, 26, there will be a change in values throughout the whole town because the market has changed. And the market has changed in this way. I used to be a real estate broker, so I sold this stuff. And my boss at one time told me, the market is not in Bellows Falls. There is no Bellows Falls market. The market is multi-state now. And what has happened is the buyers are coming from out of state. And we said, well, that's not fair. Yes, it is. It's fair because the income level in this part of the country is lower. And what happens is the sellers have noticed that and know that there are people that want to move out of the city who have cash. They will pay 2 times the price of a house that they own. They'll take their house in Boston, sell it, get $700,000 for it, come here and buy a $300,000 house, cash. No banks, nothing. This is what's going on here in town. So the market is much wider, and there's, you want to find a way to explain this to somebody as to how come you don't spend money on advertising that doesn't get you customers. So when you go home, take your newspaper, go through the paper, find me an ad from a real estate broker. There aren't any. Where is it? Zillow, online. The buyers are out of state. They see it from California. On Atchison Hollow, where I live in Cambridgeport, all the buyers that have been there in the last 3 years came from out of state. 2 of them never saw the house they bought. Two of them came to the hill, as we call it, couldn't find the house they bought. They're all by the road, they can't hide them, but they couldn't find it. They stopped and talked to a neighbor, said, we're looking for this house. The guy says, that one over there. The guy got out of his car, walked around, opened the door for his wife and said, look, honey, that's what we bought.
Yeah, no, but,
True story, right?
It's true, it's true. I wanted to thank you, Paul, for all the work you put into this. And I've been, as you can see from the correspondence I have with Josh Hanford, who's the Director of Intergovernmental Relations for VLCT. And I've also invited, our Senator Wendy Harrison is here, and I think Nader might be here. And I'll be meeting with Leslie tomorrow morning to express our discomfort with this approach that's being suggested. This approach not only throws the baby and the bathwater, but the basin out the window. It's just an incredibly bad idea. And the study is pre-wired to come up with only one solution. Right, Paul?
What's that?
The legislative study that's being commissioned has been pre-wired to come up with one solution, and that solution is statewide control.
That was the assumption at the very beginning. In fact, talking to Val in particular, when the Val president went to a hearing, she left the hearing and I said, how'd that come out? And she said, Number one, I don't think they listened to me, and number two, it was very, very well aware they had already decided what they were gonna do. This is an informational hearing. Well, if you've already decided, don't call, because we're not gonna go and just talk.
So, I wonder if Wendy wants to say, Wendy, can you hear us?
I have a question
Okay, go ahead.
first.
So-
Are there any other states that use the centralized system for this, that you're aware of?
That's a question, yes, I can, no. How do you like that answer?
I'm just curious.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm gonna say yes or no, and I'll tell you why. This was one of the questions that PVNR is trying to resolve. I don't understand why it's a question, and here's the reason. We are governed by a group called the IAAL. This is the International Assessors Association. They tell us how to measure, how to value property. That's the system. And the IAAA covers the United States and all the world. So they know how other places do this. I have gone to 890 hours of training with those guys, and I can tell you that I know how other places do it. So all you have to do is call up IAAL on the phone to find out, and here's what they do. There are places that do it by town, like this. There are places that do it by county, mainly in the Midwest, where they're big, big land masses with very few people. So they have a county, but what they will have is an office in Athens and an office in Bellows Falls and an office, because they still maintain a way that a citizen can get there. So then there are groups that do it by state. So there are all these cities generally do it for themselves. They're big enough. And what they're looking for is the size of the market. Statistics don't work very well with little numbers. You know, a statistic of 5 is kind of a toss-up whether you got anything that's worth it. On the other hand, what we do and what other smaller groups do, it's real simple. There isn't much difference between here and Westminster. There are neighborhood differences, but the market in Westminster and here are about the same. The market in even Townsend is about the same. So when we look for comps, we quite frequently have to go out of town, but it's not a real jump. If you would try to jump, take New York City. There isn't that much diversity in New York. Less than here. Well, we have 14 neighborhoods. I don't think New York City has any. Then we call them neighborhoods, but not tax neighborhoods.
Right.
So the answer is there's all kinds of ways. The system's always the same. And the reason there's no bias is you're not dealing with people. As I say, you don't know the buyer, you don't know the seller, so that cancels that. The real driver today in equity, I think, this may answer one other question, is economic. If you look at the income economy of Rockingham in general, it's $47,000 a year, annual income per family. It's not true. That's income including social benefits. If you look at earned income, it's 37, 10,000 less. And if we remove the social element, and that's when you walk across the street to the bank, all of a sudden, if you take away, for instance, subsidized rentals, and you say to that guy, why don't you move out of your subsidized thing and buy this house, you've cut 30% of his income out. And this is the main driver that's hurting the middle class people, is we are not here supplying the income. Now you said, I'm gonna take you to Saxon's River, Bonnie, because this is gonna get you excited. I've got a 37 $1,000 income in the village of Bellows Falls. I've got a 77,000 income in Saxton's River. Therein lies the difference. And if you go, believe it or not, the average earned income in Rockingham, which I call rural Rockingham, is higher than the village of Bellows Falls. Don't go up Parker Hill. You wouldn't want to count that income. So therein lies our neighborhoods. Now, we follow that every week, constantly watching how neighborhoods shift. And our neighborhoods in the town of Bellows Falls, the village, are coming up. They're coming up. You drive around, they're getting better, they look better. And and what happened all of a sudden? The property values in Rockingham, in the village of Bellows Falls, gone out of sight in the last 8 weeks. It's frightening. You want a $600,000 house in the village of Bellows Falls? We just sold it. Yeah. I nearly had to sit down when my partner in the back of the room's laughing at me, but I held it up. I said, this can't be. Somebody put the 6 in the wrong place. It was real. So those are the things that drive the market, is the income level. The other interesting thing is sales. If you've driven around, you don't see many signs up anymore because it's on Zillow. That's where it is. So tracking sales is different than it used to be. We're getting better at it. The thing about sales that really throws me off, I have kept track of sales in this town since 2006. Every sale I've recorded on a spreadsheet, and I can call them up and I can see when they sold, what they did, why. I process roughly 100 sales a year, transfers a year from one person to another. Some of those sales are called valid, and most of them are called invalid. If it's a neighbor, if it's a family member, they just cannot be used for statistics. So I do that. Watch this one. We have had between 30 and 34 sales per year for nearly 20 years that are valid. The number of valid sales per year in this town is constant. And that's the availability of buildings, because when you don't have them, you can't sell them. So our market is people passing away, people moving in, people passing away, people moving in. But the number has been very constant. This is a landmark year. We've got 6 new houses started. Presto, they weren't there last year. This is a sign that things are turning a little bit. So be careful.
Any other questions for Paul, or so we can get past this segment? Quite a
wanna
bit of
get
time
back
here.
to-
No insult to Paul, but
I
we can
didn't
listen to him all
wanna-
night. But
I didn't want to get into a lengthy thing, but what I would like to extend as a second time tonight is our office is open to you guys. Anytime you want to come, and beyond that, I have to tell you, he's taking notes. I gave Tad the job. He's recording what I'm saying. But if you need something done or you need to learn something, you come and talk to us. We'll take care of it, even on a Saturday or a Sunday or in an evening. We don't care. We work for you. That's what we're gonna do.
So I just wanted to thank our state senator, Wendy, for being here and listening to this testimony by Paul and the report. I hope it's valuable to you, Wendy.
Hi, Wendy. Oh, she's pointing.
Hi, Paul. Yes, it is valuable. And I always appreciate your stories, and you're just complete. You have such a granular knowledge of the town. It's hugely valuable, and I'm glad that there's room for optimism. And I'll just let you guys know, I mean, I'm always a proponent of local control. I think that's critical. I'll continue to talk to Paul. I'm going to listen in on more of your meeting just to see what's going on. You know, I want to stay in touch. I am encouraged that the final version of the bill turned into studies instead of immediate implementation. So I think there is still some room to negotiate. And just keep remembering that the real purpose to having proper evaluations is fairness, because that's the number that's used to calculate the property taxes. And other states do it differently. Some states do, counties, as Paul was saying. And there's pluses and minuses to everything, but having the knowledge of the local community in the hands of good, solid listers is just a quality that's huge. Now, not all towns have as that quality of listers. So I think that's what the state's struggling with also, but I'll end there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. All right, let's move on. Thank you, Paul, for
welcome,
for the dissertation there. Hope everybody took notes. Test on Friday. Next item up, Mr. Dunbar, if you're still with us, the RIDWIG presentation.
Story time is open every Monday.
I know.
I'll try to keep this brief. You guys do have some copies of some slides that were presented to us back in October from representatives from the state and an architecture firm. The Homes for All project, as you may remember, back in the summer, Bellows Falls was selected as one of 5 towns in the state to be case studies for infill development, small scale development, and specifically to develop a toolkit for small-scale developers in Vermont that focuses on missing middle housing. So prior to, 75 years ago, when there wasn't single-family zoning that is now more dominant, that most of the housing was multifamily housing. And you see that throughout the village of Bellows Falls. So what the RIDWIG group and this program are doing is to try to identify areas in town where gentle infill, which is infill development that you may not even realize is happening because it's on a lot, it's in a neighborhood, it's not a big 20-unit building or a 40-unit building. So I just wanted to update you on where that's at. They came in October. We did a walk through the village, looked at several sites, and then they've gone back and you'll see in that packet there's a bunch of different design features. So they're really focusing on the 1 to 4 unit development as the sweet spot that tends to fit our small neighborhoods and our village. And also is much easier for a small scale developer to tackle. When you get into 5 units or more, you get into some pretty complex funding structures and other regulations. So this toolkit will end up having a workbook for a builder, like how do I go about developing something if I want to build on an empty lot or add additional units on an existing lot. There will be a design guide, so we could, as a community, feel more confident that what is going to get built will fit the architecture, that the Vermont vernacular, if you will, and then it will also show some case studies. So during that walk, they identified a few lots that they will come back. In probably another month or 2, they're going to have some designs looking at specific lots in town and saying, you could do this or this. This is how things like parking may affect it. rights of way, those sort of things. So they'll have some samples in that. And then eventually, in the spring, there'll be a whole training group where they'll bring in some potential small-scale developers and kind of train them on how to use that toolkit to hopefully, generate some interest in building some new. It's great to hear Paul saying that there's new construction happening and that, many of us have said that Bellows Falls is on the rise, and we would like to continue to see that. And the more we can bring in better housing, newer housing that's up to energy code, up to building code, I think that benefits us all. So, and then the last slide, I think, sort of gave you a timeline of where we're at, which I briefly went through. So we expect that in January, February, there'll be some design discussions with those architects that will be developing it, and then in the springtime, in late 2024, there'll be some training. So that's it. Just wanted, if you have some questions, sure.
Yeah, so you say you've identified some locations?
I haven't. The architects have identified. So they took the village map, and they identified, based on just aerial views, what lots were big enough. And then they...
empty lots, or?
It could be a large lot with a house on it. Could be a big house on it, but they have such a big lot that they have the potential to put...
So they're also looking at that kind of thing?
Yes, could be, it goes all the way from accessory dwelling unit, all the way up to 4-unit buildings. Yeah, so it's inclusive of lots that have buildings on them and empty or underutilized lots.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay, let's move on to the proposed revisions to personnel policies and procedures.
So remember,
Let Paul Scott take this one.
we worked on these back in September. You guys saw the updates. We sent them off to VLCT, hoping to get their municipal assistance folks to go through them and give us any kind of feedback. But apparently they were so comprehensive that they decided that they really couldn't do it. So we're now looking for other people, employment lawyer types, to look at it, to give us some feedback before we bring it to you for final approval. So it's not on your agenda at the moment. For any additional information, just wanted to tell you what the delay was. So I guess it was larger than they could handle. And so now we're looking for outside resources to help us go through them, give us a more thorough review, and then come back to you with any changes that ultimately we'll adopt. So we're going to meet again in January, so we're hopeful that we can get that done and have that finalized for you for that January agenda.
Any questions? No, let's move right into the fire department feasibility study update.
So Sean's trying to work with John Stauffer from AP Triton. For some reason, he's having difficulty getting on. So while he's talking to him, I'll at least give an update as to some of the things that have happened since we last spoke. One of the biggest problems that we had, we all, members of the fire equipment committee, and probably some of the board members might remember, we went to one data integrated system. So for all the fire reporting information that's required, we have this software called EOS. And the EOS software, we use it for a variety of purposes, and all of the 3 service organizations, so Bellows Falls, Rockingham, and SAXTON'S River, all use the same one. So we've all standardized to the same basic infrastructure. Normally, that's not a problem to be able to pull the data from that and then be able to start doing some of the analysis that they needed on top of a lot of other data that they required that took a while to get reported through the organizations. But the problem with the EOS data was the EOS data wasn't archiving appropriately. So every time they would try to pull the data, they wouldn't get any new data. They would only, all the data, for some reason, the way it was set up, was immediately going to archive. So when they would run these reports, they're like, you have no runs in 2023? We're like, well, no, we have hundreds of runs. So it took a while to go through and figure out what had happened. So basically what had happened was all the data that they were trying to pull was being, basically every time it was updating, it was sending it to an archive. It wasn't sending it to an active data file. So they couldn't find it. So it wasn't a failure on behalf of any of our activity or anything that we did, or any of the dispatch centers reporting it appropriately or anything like that. It was literally just going to the wrong place. So they repaired that, took a while to get that updated. They now have the full archive data and the updated data that they needed. So now, I was hoping to get John on with us right now so that he could give us an update as to the next steps on the project and when we might be able to get some reporting and some feedback, more so than just the survey that hopefully everybody took from the boards. I know the link was sent out, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to do that for the fire study so that you can make sure that you had some input into that portion of this. And then there will be some additional public discussions before we get to the final report. So I guess he's still out in the hallway, so maybe we could hold this, Peter, we'll come back to it. So we can not waste everybody's time while he's trying to get John on the phone.
All right, let's move into the next item, which is the draft pavement management program discussion.
Right, so I put a couple things on just for everybody's information. We're still working on the November updates, so we've done some updates since we last talked. And we have some more work to do in terms of the 15-year plan, because that's really what guides what we try to come back to the boards and recommend for, ultimately for year-to-year budgeting purposes. But I think that the good news when you look at our percentages of roads that do not require maintenance, if you look at when we started the June 2018 report, you see that we only had 37% of our roads that were in that classification. If you look at the November 23 report, you'll see that we're up to 62% of our roads. So you've seen a pretty significant improvement in the overall quality. We still have some work to do in some of the roads you can see in our rehabilitation and in our reconstruction. Those are the two biggest areas and the most expensive, and those projects right now, we're trying to balance some of those with some of the timing of some of our bridge projects responsibilities, as well as a couple of major initiatives that involve traffic and pedestrian improvements in the schools. So just for a couple of those projects, I'm sure the boards are aware, but we have the grant to look at the implementation of pedestrian and traffic safety improvements in and around the Central Elementary School and infrastructure there. So there's a second phase to that. It's a TAP program. There's a second phase where there's actually, you can apply for the funds to do the work. So we've talked to the school. They have some work they want to do on the school property. We have some sidewalk and some construction work, both on Church as well as on a School Street extension that we wanted to do. When you add up all the numbers, it's probably in the $600,000 to $700,000 range in terms of all the work. So we've been trying to get in touch with Wyndham Regional and Colin Bratton to say, we're not done yet with all the analysis. Colin's also doing analysis for all of our sidewalks, and that's a separate thing that we'll talk about with this sidewalk survey. And this intersection is also, I believe, one of the ones that he also looked at for the sidewalk survey as well. So what I was hoping to get from Colin was, since they are the agency that we have to then work through to get the approvals, is to say, can we apply for this round of TAP grant funding, which is in December, is the deadline for this round? Or do we have to go through the full implementation stage, which means we have to go through more public meetings, another report, and then come back next fall to add it on for the following budget year in relationship to applying for those TAP grant funds. So I still don't have an answer from Colin. So that impacts either the 24 paving budget or the 25 paving budget, depending upon whether we'd be eligible for those funds. So that's one significant piece that we still haven't finished with our overall project of road maintenance. The second big piece is we're also applying for what's called BRIC grants. So these are HGMP grants. So they're FEMA grants to help you upgrade some of your culverts so that when you have these large storm events, they don't wash out like we see up on, we're waiting on, for example, we've already applied for the Leach Road culverts, right? So we're waiting on that application. That's $900,000, just to give you a sense of the scale of what some of these replacements cost for 3 culverts. We have 2 on Route 121. They were also trying to coordinate the rehabilitation and paving of that with Westminster, because they're doing a section of 121. So we could get better bids, potentially, if we both work cooperatively. But to really do this project right, we would want to try to get those two culverts upgraded. At the same time, they're on 121. So we're working on that. That application is due in January. So it's going to be a little bit of a crapshoot in terms of we're hoping that they'll give us better answers on that program that we've received on the other program that we applied for previously on the Leach Road, which we're still waiting to hear from. But again, replacing those two culverts is probably in the $400,000 to $500,000 range, just to give you a sense of some of the costs, and that doesn't include any of the asphalt or the reconstruction of the base or any of that other work or the actual paving. So some of these projects are fairly expensive. We're also, I think, holding off on fiscal year 25 paving on Route 121 because we'd also then be eligible for another paving grant. So that would be another up to $200,000 offset for the cost of that, which is going to be fairly significant. So all of those factors are sort of a long-winded explanation. The board's going to be looking at this, I believe, I have to double check our budget schedule. I think it's either the 5th or the 19th. I think the 19th. When we look at the highway department budgets and our overall pavement and sidewalk budgets. By then, I'm hoping we'll have all that data updated. We'll have all that information available so everybody can see it. Then the board will have to make a decision about the level of support in terms of how much we're going to continue to do. We've been doing 800,000 plus in most years, plus with some grant funds and with some other funds, we've actually been spending more than that in the last 3 or 4 years. The good news is you can see the improvements in the roads and people appreciate the work and they appreciate what's being done. But the bad news is the cost of asphalt continues to go up. So we're looking at maybe 110 a ton for asphalt for next year, we're projecting. We just don't know. I think this year we were in the 90s for our asphalt prices. So that's an unfortunate part of when you do these forecasts. You can be all over the map just depending upon how asphalt, the prices of asphalt rises and falls, so.
Anyone got any questions?
So Scott, the School Street, Atkinson Street intersection, we've got a grant to study and that's underway, right?
It's been underway we've had a public meeting, they're working on additional analysis. It's also been studied by Colin under the separate process for the sidewalk inventory as well.
So the northwest corner of that town-owned property, 66 Atkinson Street, where the church YMCA used to be, the future of that property will affect what happens at that intersection, right?
Depending upon the type of reuse, and I think, again, the board hasn't come forward with any specific plans for that property, and it still has to go through a cleanup. So that property is at least 18 months away from any realistic reuse. Because it's got some hot spots that have to get cleaned up, and it's on the list right now with Wyndham Regional to get that work done.
So what process should the select board, and not for this meeting, but at some point I'd like to talk about how we approach that 66 Atkinson
Well, the
Street?
school's very interested in talking to you because they have their own ideas of how they'd like to see that redeveloped. I think when you talk to some of the planning and zoning people, they have their own ideas, how they'd like to see development, and obviously the board has to weigh in, so. That might be one of those situations where we have to have maybe just a one-item agenda and get into some significant conversation when we have all that information.
So invite the stakeholders to a select board meeting perhaps, and we would discuss it?
And the neighborhood as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a little difficult sometimes when after the fact and you think you've made a great decision and the neighborhood hasn't heard about it, and then people get a little more than a little riled up, so.
Okay.
So that's still to be determined. Yes.
Matt?
How is it determined which roads get milled and which roads get shim coated and chip sealed?
It just depends on the pavement management report and what condition they're in. So they've gone out and done updates on the roads, and then they look at what needs maintenance and what needs rehabilitation.
So the roads have to be bad to be milled, and if they're not that bad enough, they just get the shim coat and the chip seal. That
The
basically.
vast majority of our roads will end up with milling, yeah.
Not in Saxon's River.
But Saxon's River is a little different in terms of volumes too. He also looks at that, he looks at traffic volumes too.
Pleasant Street still needs a little bit of work on it out there. It's after the chip sealing. last go around, I don't know if that was a year or two ago, that came out in Saxon River and did all kinds of paving, chip sealing, a lot of roads, but
I think that was 2 years ago.
yeah,
Right.
all the cracks are there already. The storm drains that we had to pay to have brought up, there's a bunch of them that they're just done shoddy. There's 3 or 4 foot squares that are concave. They were like that when, after they get the chip sealing done, it just doesn't seem to be any. Then you see the roads in Bellows Falls that are nicely done, it just seems like 2 different.
Same contractor did the same work. I'd have to go out and look at it, Matt, because I don't, you know, visually I haven't seen it, so I could certainly take a ride out there and take a look at it.
It just seemed to.
Sure.
You see Sean's return, you got any update, John, or?
He's having a hard time logging in. I just asked him to try one other way. If that doesn't work, I don't know what.
Can he just get on his phone? Can he just call us?
I tried to call him his cell. He was trying a landline, that wouldn't work.
Okay.
Okay, any other further questions on the paving? Seeing none, let's go on to the updated sidewalk survey project.
So this is an example, so this Essex, Vermont, and this is not the full report, this is just a portion of it, but I want to give this to the board just so that you can see it. So what this is part of what Wyndham Regional is working on for us at the moment. And it's fairly comprehensive. It's more involved than our previous work where we just went out and did assessments. They actually have a much more comprehensive view. They look at areas that need connection. They look at other variables to try to figure out what should be prioritized. There's also obviously a whole host of other responsibilities that they look at, like the ADA compliance, to make sure that all the things that are intersections meet all of the all the appropriate federal guidelines. And then they put all that together in the report and then give you basically, after the assessment is done, then it's pretty much like the pavement management report. It gives you a priority listing, but then the town can go out and try to make investments based on these locations. I'd hoped to have this done for this meeting, but Colin was a little backed up with some of those summer problems, so he had asked to see if he could try to have something for us in January. But I at least want to give the board an update and give you a sense of what's coming so you can see it, and then hopefully in January we'll have a more comprehensive report and something that we can dig into in a little more detail.
Scott, well, suggestions for new crosswalks, when would the right time to be to make those? Because the walk bike committee has done a lot of thinking about this, and we've got a couple of suggestions. Where should our input go?
Well, I would think before Colin comes and presents anything in a final form, he'll give us a draft, and I think at that point that's the right time to go through and verify and update. And if there are, very specific recommendations, that's definitely the time to do that. Yep.
Any questions on sidewalk? Matt?
So is Saxon's River included in this assessment of sidewalks?
I think it's doing the whole town of Rockingham, is my understanding.
Okay.
So that should be, yes.
All right, because my feeling is the sidewalks in Saxon's River, they're a public safety issue, to say the least. I don't know if any of you Rockingham board members have gone out there, but I'd be more than happy to walk around town with you.
Which streets would you suggest we walk?
All of them.
Because the paving, was delayed in Saxon's River. You're aware of that, right?
Warner sent it down the bridge. That just got too late.
Yeah. He ran out of time.
Well, that's one of them. That's one of the better ones. I
Really?
mean, 2 of them on
Yeah.
Pleasant Street, walk up there.
Okay.
I mean, be careful. And I'm not joking.
Okay.
Part of Pleasant Street got done, one half of that on the lower end.
Yeah, and, I would comment about that, they're pouring that with skid steers and wheelbarrows, and you walk on it now, and it's just, the other thing is the engineering of it too. They dug it up, they put it back where it was, the low spots are the low spots, and it'd be nice if we're gonna upgrade sidewalks that they're done with some engineering, so.
Because I know the other thing is the plowing those sidewalks, that one on the right, on the left side.
Yeah,
there, the
they
south
fall off
side,
from it.
that's 4 foot wide, and so you haven't got any room unless you cut into somebody's front lawn.
Right.
Which means right-of-way issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Most of
or
the
you're gonna
sidewalks
build
in
a stone
Saxon
wall,
River are like that.
out towards the street to hold up the sidewalk,
Yeah.
so. You know, name your poison.
Both of the sidewalks going up Pleasant Street end, not at a road. One's at a driveway, the one on the right's in the middle of someone's lawn. It's been that way 20, 30 years.
You know, I know Academy Street's, that's only about 3 feet wide, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
Academy Ave, the one that goes out by the fire station. I mean, I walked with Scott. There's a section there that's probably 30 inches wide. It's at the level of the road or below it. And from what Scott says, it's in the road right away. And there's nothing being taken care of out there. But they need to be up off the road and they need to be 5 feet wide.
Yeah, something about.
So hopefully, some of that starts happening. Had a few upgrades, but bits and pieces.
Okay, anything to add to that, Scott, or?
No,
All right,
nope.
duly noted. Let's go down to item 7, the Healthy Communities presentation. I think, is Betsy, you still with us?
So, I'm not as good as Gary, and I don't have a way to send the link. I don't know how to get the link onto that. So, I guess we don't have a video to show you. I did ask Kathleen if she could, but she's on her phone, so that might be, I don't know. Only as good as like the user of the smartphone. It doesn't make you smart, because I don't know how to use this. So, really, it was to garner interest if you wanted more information. We were approached by David Chavez, who builds these fitness courts. There is a link in your packet, so if you at least, and I think that's online, maybe, I could email you the link so you could watch this video tomorrow.
Okay.
But they are 38 by 38. They offer a workout in 7 minutes. There are grants available. There's technical assistance available. The very first step is interest and board support. So out of this town of Rockingham, if anyone on the board is interested in learning more about a opportunity that would be very much a regional supported and participated project. We'd want it at the rec center. There are places, I guess, let's see, Rochester, New York has one, Gardner, Mass. The high school has one. So it would be very much a community buy-in. It would be high schools. We would want Walpole involved. So it wouldn't just be the town of Rockingham paying for it, but what is it?
Well, I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
It's an outdoor gym. So yeah, I guess there's no pictures or anything. We were gonna show you a video.
There's nothing on here about.
I'm reading this little letter,
No, no.
can you explain what
You're
it
looking
is?
at the wrong
Are we gonna buy something? or-
It's the Healthy Communities.
I thought you were talking about that.
So it's through the National Fitness Campaign. I don't know. I was supposed to just show you the video.
Do we buy it?
We saw the walk bike, so they're basically like, they're rings you can pull on, they're places where you can do sit-ups.
It's a 38 by 38, so 38-foot pad with all these outdoor.
It's like the size of a pickleball court, basically. Correct. What it is.
But there's a cube that you can do
It
this.
has
There's
outdoor fitness equipment, so
outdoor
you
fitness.
can do a circuit training on it.
in
basically.
good weather. In all weather. I mean, we are New Englanders. My biggest, my big question was, okay, so what are we doing to support all the gyms that they work very hard, they spend a lot of money to get people to come into the gyms? All of those people would be like ambassadors for this fitness court. So they would be, the ones that teach a class up at Flex Fitness, like the inside, they would be like, once a week, we're gonna go outside and we're gonna go to this gym. So that's how we would support them.
Well, how do you know they do that once a week?
Well, I don't know.
They might.
I'm just saying, like, how, yeah. I don't know what else to say, because you don't even know what it looks like. We're supposed to show this video.
So I think the important thing would be to send everybody the
Yeah.
way
There's a
to
link on there for you to watch the
Or
movie and then, right.
go to the, and then
Yeah.
we could watch it
Yeah.
and have a much better idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, and then if there's interest, if you're like, yes, we want more information, we'll invite David Chavez in.
Right.
Obviously, he would be there with the video. I don't know.
Great, thanks, Betsy.
So, yes, there's the healthy communities. I actually asked if I could come on as the Bellows Falls Downtown Executive Director, and so then they said,
Why don't you do
present
that
this.
too? Right.
So there's a letter, I'm not gonna read it all, but I just wanted to, thank you all for your support. Shop Local has started, so between now and December 31st, they're hot pink cards this year, you can't miss them. There's over 60, I think there's almost 70 participating businesses. On the back of the card is a little star, so I'm sorry, I don't even have a card to show you, but those are the non-stamping sponsors, but they've given money for this card. There's really cool prizes this year. We have an oil-less turkey fryer from J&H. It's in a box like this big, so someone's gonna win that. And how you win it is you spend, at least $100 locally. You fill up your card and you drop it at J&H or Lisa's or Halliday's or the bookstore. There it is. So there's Shop Local. Walk the Rock, I don't know if anyone has been on any of these trails, but we've got 5 different trails in downtown Bellows Falls. The Riverfront Trail, we have Oak Hill and the Pump Track. I'm sure you've seen the selfies. There's the Island Trail, where Robertson Paper Mill Kiosk. If you haven't seen that, please go check that out. It's so gorgeous. Pays homage to the building that is not there anymore. So that's a selfie spot. And then there's a retail trail. You find the selfies, you take a picture of it, you bring it into local businesses, the participating businesses, and you'll get a sticker. You collect all 5 stickers, you get a free water bottle. And there are 26 participating businesses on that. So for the holidays, between now and December 31st, you can also collect signatures. So there's 2 ways to play. You only need 15 signatures this season instead of the 26, and you get a $10 gift certificate to one of the businesses on there. So, and everything's free.
Whose signature are you talking?
On the brochure. So again, I don't have a brochure, but you can find them at the kiosk right here at Town Hall. There's a little black box on the lamppost. On your way home, grab one of those brochures. So it's a map of downtown. It shows a passport. Yeah.
Well, the signatures, I think what Bonnie's asking is, are we going to businesses and like the business owners are signing that?
Yes, thank you. So when you pick up your Walk the Rock brochure, you open it up, you'll see a list of participating businesses.
It's a great idea.
It's very well
I have
done.
it in my car.
And it is the coolest promotion we've ever been involved in because we got grant money for it, working with the town, and Maya and Damien. So I'll shout out to Creative Catalyst Communications. So yeah, it's actually really nice. And what we've been wanting is a downtown map, so that's kind of the beginning of our wayfinding projects, but yeah.
I think I figured out how to connect you if you wanted to show your video.
Okay.
You have to do Bluetooth to that TV, so it's entirely up to you unless you want to wait.
Oh, okay. No, I don't want you guys to wait, but I have 2 more things to say about Bellows Falls Downtown. I promise I'm not speaking for 45 minutes. So big news, Sarah Lang, is she, no?
It's
So
actually 52.
Right. Where was I? So Bellows Falls and Rockingham have been chosen for the 2024 host of the Historic Preservation in Downtown Conference. So on June 6th, 2024, you're definitely gonna wanna write this down, you're not gonna wanna miss this. We will be host to, last time it was at St. Johnsbury and there was over 250 people there. And we anticipate even more because of Massachusetts, of New Hampshire. We'll definitely attract all the Bennington, Rutland, all Wyndham County folk. So we are one of 23 downtowns. It's also all the historic preservation folk, and yeah, a lot of professionals will be in town. We're very excited to encourage everyone to pre-order lunch, so all the local businesses will get a lot of this business, and workshops will be all around town. We did a walking tour. We showed them all our accessible locations. They were very impressed with that every single one of our locations we showed had access. So there's elevators, and yeah, we're inclusive, we're making it happen. So Bellows Falls will be on the map again. And then the Parade of Lights, so big thing, December 9th, make sure you're either in it or watching. The Wool will have a radio show, so tune your dials to, is it 91.5? The Wool, yes. And then I will be all lit up in my favorite spot in the square, stopping traffic, angering motorists. The road is closed. And then I'll be on the feed on Wednesday, so if I, for some reason, miss something here, and I'll be live on the radio on Friday, so.
I got a question.
Yes.
I noticed on here that, and I'm just curious, the Parade of Lights this year is going reverse.
Yes. Oh, yes. So thank you. So with your paperwork and that long letter I wrote, it's also a holiday calendar of all the events. So the Parade of Lights, because of a lot of feedback, we have asked, and Chief Bemis said, sure. And we're coming backwards. So we're going to start in the square. So the parade starts at the fire station, police station. It's gonna come down Rockingham Street through the square and then go on Atkinson. And we're hoping people will come here earlier and they'll stay later. And there's lots of cafes serving hot drinks. There'll be free hot chocolate. There'll be fundraiser hot chocolate. So no one should go without the hot chocolate this year. Thank you for mentioning that. So you said Bluetooth is on. I'm supposed to, yup, TV. This might work. And then what? Because it's in an email or a text.
Sean could help you.
Oh, can you pair?
He's got something else on his phone.
I'm assuming you need to use the TV remote to click pair now. Right? Sorry, it's hard
Just
for me
this
to not
thing?
say something.
Thank you. Yeah, we need someone that,
I think that you have to,
try again.
yeah. And then you click on it.
Okay, ready? When it comes up, click before it disappears.
Just cleared you. We just came back.
Now it just didn't.
All this anticipation, this better be a hell of a video. It's gonna blow your minds, can't wait.
I don't think it's,
That's on your phone anyway.
On your phone. Something is. Well, you can send us a link, can't you? If you can't.
We have the link.
I can, yes,
Yeah.
tomorrow when I'm back in the office, so.
Perfect.
Thank you, Betsy.
So yes, thank you very
All right,
much.
Thank
thanks,
you.
Betsy.
Thank you, Betsy.
All right,
So
let's
Sean, I think, has
move along
John,
here.
Peter, before we jump off the
Agenda items
agenda.
for the next meeting, we can
Wait,
talk about the
yeah.
tax sale update. Oh, you finally got somebody, Sean?
I do.
All right, go for it.
John? You with us?
I'm here.
Can you hear us?
For me?
We can hear you, John. Could you give just an update? I told the board about some of the data problems We're looking at just sort of some general milestones, things that you could sort of give them an update on the fire feasibility study.
Absolutely. Well, we're on draft number 21, which probably doesn't mean anything to you folks, but we've got the majority of our main report written. We're just finishing up the financial evaluation, and then the big issue is data, and it's going to take some time. We did, Rich Buchanan was doing a project for Putney, and so he was able to take time to come over to the Rockingham area and get data from 3 departments. It's in a really raw format. It's going to take time to compile it and put it into a format that we can read and then analyze. So we've got most of this report done with the exception of our final conclusions and recommendations. And so a big part of that is being able to look at your historical operational performance, essentially the data analysis. That's a big part of this whole project. So that's about where we're at. There's a lot written, and Sean has been absolutely outstanding, and Scott as well, in providing us with information, and I appreciate the other fire chiefs as well. Any questions, comments?
So John, this group gets together once a quarter, so the next quarterly meeting of this group right now is tentatively set for January 30th. You think we'll at least have something we could circulate to them at that meeting, so they'd have some information?
I don't know. It depends upon the data. I still have to come out and do a site visit, and that probably won't occur until right after the first of the year at this point. And then the next step in this process is we send you guys the main report without recommendation, and it's called technical review draft number 1. And that's when you go through it page by page and ensure that the information that we've written down is accurate. Number of people, all the facilities, all kinds of things. Then you send it back to us for any changes, and then we finalize the recommendations. So it might be a little tight getting it by the next board meeting. I will do absolutely my best, but some of it's been a real challenge with the data. That's the biggest hurdle we've had.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions?
And believe me, we've been working nonstop on with as much and doing as much as we possibly can with the information we have. So there's a lot been written.
I think there was one question, John, on the board.
John, I had one question.
Sure.
Wade Mashore, village trustee. The data that you look at, or that you've had a challenge getting, but now you're getting, how many years worth is that?
I'm hoping, and I don't know how much Rich got, but we generally want at least 3 years worth of data.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I can't answer that question because he just got back from there and I haven't had a chance to hook up with him with the holiday and all that stuff. But, we're not, I'm sure, going to have, years and years worth of data. It's just not possible.
Right. But probably at least 3.
Well, I hope at least 3. It depends upon what was in. It all came out of your records management systems.
Yeah.
The other thing is we were told that we cannot get data from the CAD system, which is very unusual. But you're paying these folks to do your dispatching, yet we can't get data out of their system, which is highly unusual. That would be very helpful if we could get CAD data, computer-aided dispatch data, from the dispatch center in New Hampshire. Typically, we get that information. We get the data from dispatch, and we get the data from local agencies' records management system. That way we have double information and we are much more comfortable with knowing we have accurate information. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Thank you.
Well, we'll work on our end, John, on key mutual aid and see what the problem is, because I don't understand that either. So we'll do what we can to try to get that resolved.
Maybe Sean, do you have something you want to go first, or
I just want to clarify, the problem getting the CAD information is not on the part of Key Mutual Aid.
Okay.
It's actually on the part of the vendor symposium, and we're fighting that
Yeah,
out.
I'm sorry, that's correct.
Okay.
And I should have clarified that. It is symposium
Got it.
issue, and it's kind of ridiculous. So, no, I don't blame, I'm sorry, I shouldn't blame dispatch for that.
Scott?
Thank you.
John and Scott, do all three departments define a call in the same way? I mean, you've got car crash, you've got someone who's a heart attack, with all these myriad things that have to be responded to. And how can we compare apples to apples if we don't, if each department isn't using the same definition?
Well, they all have to report under the National Fire Information, that NIFR system that we use for grants. So they all have the basic reporting requirements under that, and then we use that data management software, that EOS that we talked about.
Yeah.
So that information, Rick, should be consistent.
Okay.
We're on the same platform, we do the same reporting, and it's a national standard. So I don't think there's anything in there that one department does that's different than another.
And the only way to cross-check that is with the dispatch data. Right.
Well, according to Rich, Rich Buchanan, who came there and got the data, that Rockingham Fire has not entered any reports this year in BSO, in the RMS system. So I don't know if he's entering it in the old system, or just not entering it at all, or entering it in the newer system. So if there's no data if there's no reports from Rockingham Fire during the last year, that's concerning to us. I don't know that for sure.
No.
There's one other issue that kind of came up, and we're including it in our report because we think it's important, and that is how EMS is delivered, transport, how that service is, how that's working in your community. So we'll be addressing that in our report. It's kind of a freebie add-on.
Hey, anybody else got any questions? Sean, you all set?
I'm good.
All right, thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.
All right, let's move on to the review agenda items for the next meeting. We know tax date and hopefully the feasibility study.
Yes.
Anybody, anything else or anybody else would like to have brought up? We've got a couple months yet, so. Seeing none, let's move on to the review and approve orders, bills, and warrants. Do we have any on the table? I know we passed them.
I brought them down.
Yeah,
Where'd they end up?
they're there. It looks like you
Yes.
guys have both,
Oh, okay.
you guys have signed, so.
So you just
I
need
guess
that.
we'll entertain a motion for the village to review and approve orders, bills, and warrants. So moved.
Second?
Motion been made, seconded. All in favor would say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. So, I think you have 3 signatures, which is what I think you need on them.
All set.
All
Yep.
right.
All right, let's move on to other business. Floyd?
Nothing.
None? Wade?
No, all set.
Paul?
Nope.
Nothing from me. Brett? And Bonnie at the same time?
Okay, so as you know, at the last meeting, the idea of doing a survey was discussed, and the select board has since decided to fund it. And it's going to happen mostly electronically, although the surveys will also be available on paper at bookstores, senior center, library, etc.
Well, what you see here is what will be on paper. Is there a place at Saxton's River where you can put a little column for people to pick up?
Market store.
Market would be the only place. So go in and talk to them. Okay. So we hope to have at the market, the senior center in Bellows Falls, the library, and town hall. And so most of the survey is going to be through SurveyMonkey online, and that'll be posted on the town website. And we'll be mailing a postcard to every voter that has a QR code. You can go there, and also the link to the town website. And any that come in by paper, I'll have to put into the survey myself. So.
And one statistic from last year, 0.03% of Rockingham's registered voters showed up at town meeting. 110 people out of 3707 registered voters. So this is one of the reasons why we're doing this, is that a tiny, tiny percentage of our town is making these decisions. And we're not only, we're seeking new approaches, ideas to find out why people aren't coming, see what would encourage them to come. Peter's good piece of advice is to get a hot item on the agenda.
Put merger on there, that'll get right. Works every time.
Yeah.
One point of information though, on item number 4, you have there, the wording's gotta be changed, because you're saying, should we schedule the school board? The school board sets their own schedule, the town has, we can't tell them when to do it.
All right, so should the
It's
school...
been, you can change it however you want, but I think you gotta change that.
Wow, they didn't,
Right here. Jakes might have a word to say on that.
Jay, you got a comment on that one?
I don't have it in front of me, but we would have to have a second meeting of for the school. And I think if you're trying to get people there, you're not going to do yourself any favor by excluding one large part of it. So in fact, the school budget is certainly as big as the town budget. So anyway, I think excluding it would be a mistake, but that's but certainly it's I don't know who hosts it. If the town of Rockingham hosts it, I don't know whether we have the select board has the power, or whether it's a shared power. I don't know.
well, I think maybe we'll just take that out.
I think it was a matter of wording on the sentence, because it says, should we schedule the school board meeting for a different time? And the school board sets their own meeting. We don't tell them when to set it. It just.
That's correct. Yeah, that wording would be incorrect. Absolutely, yes.
That's what we're talking about. Good, it's not excluding it, but you're right on that point. Having 2 separate meetings, it's now. It makes for a long meeting, but it depends on what's on the agenda.
But then,
Issue's gonna be long, 17 social services on there.
I was gonna call you, but that's not me.
Crystal would say something.
One question, for the paper surveys that are dropped off, where do they get deposited?
Well, we're hoping wherever they're placed, they'll collect them.
Or the like envelope or something like that?
Yeah, we'll have a big envelope there, they can just put them in there.
And then we'll input them. And I ran this survey past the Vermont Secretary of State. I want to make sure we're putting out any ideas that were illegal by state law. And they gave me a couple of suggestions. One thing, they said we can't have any connection with ballots, and this is unofficial. So we said we're not going to do that. And they gave us some new wording on question 2, which I have adjusted. So it's what I'm suggesting is a possibility is legal. So I think we're good to go at the state level, just so when information comes back, it'll be valid.
So if the town were to vote to have informational meeting and all the warrant questions voted in the ballot. What would that do to the school board meeting?
They set their own.
They set their own meeting, but they always piggyback with the town.
Well, they piggyback to date, that's because it's historically done that way, but that doesn't mean it does have to be done that way. They can set a different date, but it's easier for both meetings to be held at the same time.
Yeah.
And they're both informational, basically, and right now, as it was voted last year, the village voted the same way. They don't want to do Australian ballot, they want to vote right there at the town meeting, on budgets and everything, so, one shot does it all. The Australian ballot, if it fails, then you gotta go through the whole process again, and the expense of the ballot and all
I know,
that stuff.
that's the problem, but then
You know,
you can't
that's-
just have less than a third of a percent of people making these decisions. I mean,
Well, it'll be interesting, the question you have on there about, I have no desire for the discussion, which tells you that, you're not interested in at all about the discussion, so. And an uninformed voter is the most dangerous voter you got. I mean, if they don't know what they're voting on, they're just going to show up to put a check mark on a piece of paper. That means they have no interest in the outcome of what's going on. If you care about what's going on, you're gonna show up. I mean, look at tonight, what do we got on here? We got more board members than we got people in the public now.
well, I think that, I know from people I've spoken with, the discussion sometimes gets really protracted, and people are like arguing, basically, and, you can be informed and already have a pretty good idea how you feel about something, and not want to sit all night and listen to Joe and Jeannie quarrel.
That's true.
All right,
So we're gonna go ahead with it, the mailing's gonna go out in December at some point, we'll let you know at the
Yeah,
next
probably in
meeting.
a couple of weeks.
I think it'll be fascinating to see what comes back.
Yeah.
all right, Elijah, do you have anything?
Just one small thing. I just bring it up from time to time, and since there are a couple of new members on the Falls Village Board, I've been advocating for a couple of years to replace the roof on the old pond intake house at Myers Pond. It's just a very interesting small building that is part of the original construction of that municipal water supply from the 1840s. And it definitely has some significance from a historical standpoint, and it's just an interesting structure for people who go up there and use that area for recreation. But it needs a new roof, and it's not a huge thing, but if nobody puts a new roof on it, it's not going to be there very long.
Ellen? Matt?
Nope.
Okay, there's no need for executive session, so I guess I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Will you hear a second?
Second.
Motion made, seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we're out of here, folks. Thanks for calling up.